On August the 2nd, the U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nэнsi Pelоsi, sneaked into Taiwan, becoming the first U.S. Speaker to visit the island in 25 years. The trip has drawn concerted criticism around the world for her reckless, high-profile and unnecessary provocation at a time when relations between China and the U.S. were already at an all-time low. She touts the trip as a victory for democracy, but in the great democratic country she came from, things don't look too pretty. The economy is getting worse by the day. People are getting killed in the streets due to rampant gun violence, and women are denied their rights over their own body. Things are bad even in her own home. California has had more than 90,000 COVID-19 deaths, and another emergency over monkeypox virus was just announced. Yet the speaker left that mess for a foreign trip. Why is that? What kind of politician has she been? Welcome to this special production brought to you by The Point with me, Lü Shin, coming to you from Beijing. Today we'll take a look back into the political life of Nэнsi Pelоси, a vain, opportunistic politician who is out there only for herself. Nэнsi Pelоси was born into a family of Italian immigrants. She was the only daughter and the youngest of 7 children. Pelosi's father, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., was a longtime mayor of Baltimore, Maryland, and her mother was his political organizer. Growing up in a political family, she was steeped in a culture that can be described as machine politics in the East. Politicians there get things done with the single goal of getting votes. The word machine comes from the ability to turn out the votes needed to get its members elected, and the process becomes a routine, reliable, and even literally mechanical. Nэнsi Pelоси grew up with that machine turning around her 24/7, and after she became a politician herself, she became the embodiment of it.
The ends justify the means for everything that she does. It's a question of what she wants to get done and what is necessary to get it done. So it's very transactional in nature, and that's what she has become.
Nэнsi Pelоsi has a reputation, since 1989, if not earlier, has been very, very critical, very, very harsh on China. She made her career when she was a congresswoman from San Francisco by criticizing China, attacking China. Secondly, there are some interest groups certainly back up here. This could be a military-industrial compound in the United States. They want to enhance the military tensions and actually can sell weapons.
One outcome of this culture of transactional politics is that Nэнsi Pelоси knows how to use power as a weapon to get what she wants through hypocrisy or multi-standards. Truth doesn't really matter. It's how you frame the story the way you want it, even by lying, and still to be able to get away with it. She always prides herself on being a champion of human rights, but turned a blind eye when the U.S. was exposed to have been using torture while interrogating terrorism suspects. Waterboarding is a technique to use a wet cloth to cover the face and breathing passages of a captive, causing the person to experience the sensation of drowning. One prisoner by the name of Abu Zubaydah told the world he was put through the barbaric torture 83 times in 1 month alone in August 2002. Records show that 1 year after 9/11 terrorist attacks, the CIA briefed Pelosi together with other senior congressional members extensively on the matter. She was said to be one of the first members of Congress to be informed. But Pelosi repeatedly denied she knew that waterboarding was being employed, even claiming that the CIA lied to Congress.
We also now know that techniques including waterboarding had already been employed, and that those briefing me in September 2002 gave me inaccurate and incomplete information.
Former CIA Director Leon Panetta disputed Pelosi's account. Another senior Congress member who sat through the same briefings called her claims slack-jawing in an opinion piece on Washington Post. It was not until 2009 when she admitted for the first time that she knew by early 2003 that the CIA had subjected detainees to waterboarding. According to the New York Times, she claimed she saw little recourse to challenge the practice except by achieving Democratic control of Congress and the White House.
Quite frankly, I mean, it's human values that she always liked, American values, which she equates with human rights. She's completely blind to any kind of other system. She's an American exceptionalist. That means that anything America does to maintain its power and further this idea that the world will fit in one box, that it'll be liberal, democratic capitalism for all nations on earth, that's where her moral blindness comes. It is not that she, if you met her, you would have a sense that she's evil, but what she believes in does do evil. All right? Yes, she voted against the Iraq War, but then she came around and did not denounce the kind of torture and acts.
On the case of Julian Assange, no records can be found that she spoke out for his human rights and freedom. She called riots in Hong Kong a beautiful sight to behold, but riots on Capitol Hill heartbreaking. Pelosi preached democracy for Hong Kong, but never uttered a word about the UK's colonial suppressions there. Nancy Pelosi has proved to the world how she is able and willing to take moral shortcuts in order to score political points, personal gains, or even convenience. She attacked former President Donald Trump for his incompetence in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, even calling the virus the Trump virus. But she would break social distancing rules simply to have her own hair done. But these are nothing compared to other gains she could pocket by gaming the system. Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, has been nicknamed God of Stocks in the U.S. Congress by many here in China. A series of stock investments at the right time have caused many to suspect insider trading by the Pelosis. In December 2021, Paul Pelosi bought $1 million worth of Tesla stocks. A little more than a month later, President Joe Biden signed an executive order directing federal officials to transition government fleets to clean and zero-emission vehicles. As the nation's highest legislator and a champion for climate change, how convincing is Pelosi when she says she had no prior knowledge of Biden's plan? In May this year, Paul Pelosi scooped up another 1 million Amazon stocks months before the U.S. Department of Defense announced to scrap a deal with Microsoft on cloud computing. Similar operations were made with Apple, Walt Disney, Alphabet, and other stocks. The Pelosis have a net worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars, making her one of the richest members of Congress. And the vast majority of their wealth comes from stocks, options and investments made by her husband, with an incredible average return of stocks and options of 56%. When suspected of insider trading, Pelosi has repeatedly said that she has nothing to do with these transactions.
And there's more than enough smoke to know that there's a fire here. You cannot be that lucky consecutively. And especially given the position of your wife, whether he heard it from her or heard it from people around her, it doesn't matter. She is compromised. In these types of things, she should have asked him to refrain from investing in stocks where it would be politically sensitive to her. That would be the moral value thing to do. But she didn't do it.
In June this year, her husband bought shares of the chip maker NVIDIA, but sold them right before the U.S. passed the so-called Chip Plus bill to boost the U.S. semiconductor industry. According to Nancy Pelosi's deputy chief of staff, Paul Pelosi decided to sell the shares at a loss rather than allow the misinformation in the press regarding this trade to continue. This self-inflicted loss failed to appease the critics who called this a show. Before making her infamous trip to Taiwan, she was asked about whether she was abusing power for financial gains. She again flatly denied before hurrying from the podium. This is obviously not a favorite topic.
Has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information you received from you?
No, absolutely not. Okay, thank you.
Upon her return from Taiwan, the U.S. House of Representatives is expected to unveil a bill to ban stock trading for lawmakers. When asked whether she would support a ban on stock trading, she refused. "We are a free market economy," she said. "They should be able to participate in that."
This was one of the most disappointing and maybe, to put it even less politely, disgraceful comments and views I have heard espoused on this issue. We have insider trading laws for a reason. This undermines every bit of trust. It goes to every worst expectation of corruption. And it's not even expectation, it's real.
A recent poll showed that 3/4 of Americans say members of Congress should not trade stocks while serving in Congress. For Pelosi, who's supposed to represent the people who elected her, to get so rich while serving seems not to be a strange idea. In fact, personal gains never seem a taboo for her. A lot of what she has done or said seems just about herself, other than overall interest of the people or the nation. For her, vanity comes first. In February 2020, Pelosi ripped then-President Donald Trump's State of the Union speech into pieces right after he delivered it. Even CNN, the liberal-leaning channel, called this unprecedented, aggressively rude, and unapologetically meant to rile up her base. It was divisive but effective. And this was not the only time she stole the spotlight by being theatrical.
她的性格都有那种表演性的性格，那种喜欢捕捉镁光灯的性格。这个记者 camera 如果没有对着我，我就会觉得惶惶不可终日。
Another example of a penchant for political vanity is her decades-long bias on China. Former CNN Beijing bureau chief Mike Chinoy described her as someone who has a penchant for high-profile gestures designed to poke China's communist rulers in the eye, regardless of consequences. And her latest trip to Taiwan was just that.
I'll be frank about it. She just wants to poke China in the eye. She is going to lose the speakership position most likely at the end of this year after the midterm elections. If I understand correctly, she anyway, even if they do win, she will be stepping aside to have a next generation from the Democratic side. But anyway, the point is, I think the Democrats will not just lose, they will be hammered. And therefore, her chance to ever come as a speaker to Taiwan, she could come as a congresswoman, as part of a CODEL, but as speaker will have evaporated. And I think that is essentially what she's trying to get at, to poke China in the eye when she can.
Since the beginning of 2022, Pelosi has been contemplating a visit to Taiwan. In April, she had to cancel the trip last minute due to COVID-19. And in September, she'd be busy getting her members re-elected and elected. So before the end of this year, this was the last window of opportunity to put on this show and go down in history as the most powerful woman who visited Taiwan in defiance of China in the name of so-called democracy. It would also conveniently deviate attention from the scandals troubling her at home.
By allowing Pelosi to throw her weight into this regional issue, it's like United States throwing a 500-pound gorilla to the cross-strait issue and very clearly become an intervening factor of what the people and leadership across Taiwan Straits should decide.
I would call her troublemaker-in-chief in the world, because she doesn't care about the fundamental interests of the people of Taiwan. She doesn't care about the prospect and the commitment for the reunification of the two sides of the Taiwan Strait, because after all, we are all Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Strait.
Public relations card that could be used by the United States to try to bring condemnation onto China, because China feels, and the U.S. has accepted, that Taiwan is part of China. But now they're trying to rewrite history, and Nancy Pelosi, in a combination of ego and American exceptionalism, selective values, is going along with that.
After she sneaked out of the island, the people of Taiwan have spoken. A poll conducted the next day with 13,000 respondents showed over 3/4 of people have no confidence in her promise to protect the so-called democracy in Taiwan. Nэнsi Pelоsi may be exiting from the post of House Speaker very soon. When she looks back, she will have little to claim as a political legacy. On issues which she felt strongly, such as guns and abortion rights, little progress has been made under her tenure. She did pull off the Taiwan gimmick, but that will not solve any domestic woes that plague the American people, but rather quite the opposite. But Nэнsi Pelоsi seemed not to care about the overall interest of the American people and nation. She seems to care more about her own legacy and her own pocket. The French King Louis XV had an expression, après moi le déluge, meaning after me the deluge. It's an attitude of indifference towards whatever happens after one's gone. Pelosi truly embodies that spirit. Only her personal legacy and wealth matter, or else be damned.